It's early 2011, and DC Comics has a problem. Marvel is consistently ahead of them in market share, and there's difficulty getting new readers as several of their flagship titles are now over 800 issues in. Looking at their own stagnation, the higher-ups make the decision to do something that hasn't been done in over 25 years. Down the hall, one of DC's star writers, Geoff is writing an event miniseries called Flashpoint, where Barry Allen, aka The Flash, creates an apocalyptic new reality that he alone can repair. Geoff and the top brass start to talk, and while the details of exactly what happens next are sketchy at best, the end result is the decision that the end of Flashpoint will reboot the entire DC universe, a move the company had not done since 1985 with Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's May of 2011. Issue number 2 of Flashpoint is releasing tomorrow, but the announcement is made public today. 52 new series, all starting at issue number 1, coming in just 3 months. The reaction was mixed. Longtime fans are upset that everything they read up to that point seemingly no longer matters, while casual audiences are excited that they can hop on worry-free. Regardless, DC was entering an era of endless possibilities with the New 52. It's now summer 2015 and DC has dropped the New 52 branding from their books. The reboot was successful in bringing in new readers and allowing DC to take the plurality of market share over Marvel, if only for a while. Many readers grew tired of the edginess that the reboot was founded upon, and the most recent event, Convergence, wasn't exactly a hit, even if we're being generous. The New 52 was all but dead in the water, but it would be another year until the rebirth of the DC universe. That same summer, I had just moved into a new apartment that was just down the street from a comic shop. Having loved the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy and, unfortunately, getting hyped for Batman v Superman, I decided to go to the shop and grab Volume 1 of both Batman and Justice League. Just 2 small trade paperbacks. It's now summer of 2021. The New 52 is a decade old. It lives in infamy as a misstep for DC. From the lack of planning to behind-the-scenes drama, it's a period that should be cherry-picked from, if not completely ignored. An era best left forgotten. So I bought all of it. This isn't even half. Today, August 31st, 2021, marks the 10th anniversary of the New 52's origin. Partially in celebration, but mostly because I need a reason to actually start reading all of this, I'm embarking on a journey. For the next 5-ish years, I will be reading, recounting, and reviewing the entirety of the New 52 line on an exact 10-year delay. From the good to the bad, the beautiful to the hideous, and the edgy to the even more edgy, this is the Not-So-New 52. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 0 of the Not-So-New 52. I'm your host, and don't get used to that production value, because it's never going to happen again. For real, though, this is more of an unscripted, unedited type show, and we're going to be talking about DC Comics on this podcast type thing, but not just any DC Comics. We are talking about the entirety of the New 52. Now, already, I know there's going to be some people crying out, now wait a minute, what do you mean by the entirety of the New 52? Because that comes with about 20 asterisks on it. I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Pretty much any comic book that was published in mainline continuity between the summers of 2011 and 2016. After Flashpoint, pre-Rebirth. That's what I define it as. If you want an official list, there are 2 Wikipedia articles I use to collect it. They are List of New 52 publications and List of New 52 imprint publications. If it's on either of those lists, we're doing it. I have it. Okay, short and sweet. Now, speaking of short and sweet, this week in comics, very short and sweet. There were only 2 comics published this week from DC. Number 1 was Flashpoint number 5, which wrapped up the Flashpoint event. Number 2 we'll get to in a bit, but I really do want to talk about Flashpoint number 5 for a second, just because it is important to see what we're about to get into. See, Flashpoint number 5 wrapped up the Flashpoint event. where Barry Allen went back in time, did a whole Back to the Future thing where he messed up a little something, and therefore the entire world was now an apocalypse. But also, much like Back to the Future, when he fixed it and came back, things weren't exactly the same as when he left it. Now, this is also partially because of a character named Pandora, who you saw when he was fixing the timeline, and she was taking characters from other DC properties, such as Wildstorm Universe and the Vertigo line, and throwing them into the proper DC continuity. So because of her changing the timeline and Barry changing the timeline, we end up with a brand new timeline that is New 52 continuity. So there you go. For all you newbies, that's all you need to know. For everyone else who's sticking around with the rest of this show, let's dive into the other comic that was released this week, Justice League number 1. Justice League, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jim Lee. Oh boy, this book is the start of the entire New 52 universe, in every possible meaning. I mean, technically we'll get to books that are dated before this one, like ones that take place in the Middle Ages and whatever, but when it comes down to what you should read first, this is definitely it. This is the introduction. This entire first arc is the introduction of how the Justice League came together, and it's set 5 years ago, but I don't mean 5 years ago from now, 2021. I mean 5 years ago from 2011. It even says so on the first page. So I guess this is 2006 when all this is happening, and basically all you really need to know is that superheroes aren't really a thing. Like 5 years ago is when they just showed up. It was where Batman first started, it's when Superman first started, and everyone's kind of a little bit wary of superheroes being around. So, what happens in this one specifically? Well, we open with a sniper rifle trained on Batman. So right off the bat, yeah, we're not super big on any sort of heroes running around. Batman is chasing down some hooded figure on rooftops. He's got GCPD helicopters and snipers after him. Finally, he catches up to the hooded figure, and it looks like some sort of demonic beast thing. When he finally gets it tackled, it unleashes just this fiery energy blast and starts wailing on Batman, who shows up to save him but Geoff Johns' favorite creation, Green Lantern, who we will get to. He throws a fire truck, a green fire truck, mind you, at the Parademon. Oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to say Parademon yet. They're just we don't know they're Shh. Anyway. Green Lantern shows up. He's surprised that Batman's even real because he thought he was just an urban legend. GCPD starts firing on everybody. They have a little chat about, who they are, what they do, why the people are firing on them, for readers who have never picked up a comic before. It's an intro. Parademon gets up. He shoves Green Lantern out of the way, launches a giant energy beam at some helicopters. Green Lantern makes some constructs of bats to pull the helicopters from falling out of the sky, which, for knowing Batman for all of 30 seconds, I'm not sure why he would do this, but hey, good on him. Anyway, Parademon gets away, scuttles off down the sewers. Batman and Green Lantern take pursuit. And there's this wonderful little sequence here where Green Lantern tries to guess what Batman's powers are, like, can he fly, does he have super strength? And he comes to the realization that Batman is literally just a dude in a bat costume. But then he immediately proves himself by somehow stealing the Green Lantern ring right off of Hal Jordan's finger, which is always a fun little sequence. They come across the Parademon. Parademon has this box that he's trying to fuse into a wall. Green Lantern charges in blindly, which is going to be a very recurring theme in this book. He startles the Parademon, I guess, who then says, "For Darkseid," and explodes. Green Lantern protects them inside of a construct. They find the box. They're like, this looks like it belongs to an alien. Hey, hasn't there been an alien coming up in the news recently? What was his name? Super Duper Man or something. So they go off to find Superman. Cut to a football game where Victor Stone is just doing fantastic, and all the scouts are there, and everyone's cheering him on, except for his dad, who isn't there because he's busy with science stuff. We'll get more on him throughout, but anyway, they see the green jet flying above them going to Metropolis, where Green Lantern's like, hey, Batman, I got this. Look, I know a thing or two about aliens. I'm kind of a Green Lantern, so why don't you just stay here? And then it gets decked by a red and blue blur flying through what looks to be an entire building. And who's standing there, having thrown the punch, but our New 52 Superman. Collar and all. Oh, it looks so bad. Anyway, that's what happened. Now, as for the issue as a whole, it's an origin story. I mean, you're going to hear me say that for the next 6 months. It's an origin story. It's breaking down the characters into their most basic bits so that everybody can understand. They literally say things in here that if you had any concept of the character at all, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it. Yes, clearly that's how Batman, thinks. But again, they're putting it down into the most basic blocks so that people who don't even know that can come into this and they can pick it up. So it's fine, writing-wise. Out of 5, I'd probably give it 3.5. It's not anything, oh wow, so amazing, the Justice League found a box. It's nothing so far. And it ending on the cliffhanger of Superman, not bad. I like that. The fact that the very first issue does show Superman in a very beautiful looking splash page, by the way. But I don't like it how the whole way they set it up is him and Batman are about to fight. And it's like, really? In issue 2 of your first book, that's when you're already going to have them fight? Okay, I guess, whatever. But maybe that's because I'm sick of it because I've already seen Batman v Superman. Anyway, as I was saying, the splash page for Superman is beautiful. There's one of Batman flying over the city that looks great. All the art in this is fantastic. Jim Lee definitely took his time. The only problem I say I would have is something is weird about, dead-on shots. If a person's in profile, totally fine. It's dead-on shots that something's a little bit off. You can see it the most in Green Lantern because his mask, it's shaded. Maybe it's because of the light that's all around him, but he doesn't look like he has a nose. It's just a flat. There's no shading in the places that would indicate that his nose is coming out from his face. If he turns his head, it's fine. It's there. But from dead on, something just doesn't look right about it. But overall, Jim Lee's art, totally good. Nice amount of detail to it. I give that probably a 4 out of 5. So altogether, I guess I'm giving this issue 7.5 out of 10. It's good. It's a nice start. It's certainly not something oh, gee, that's how they're starting the universe. No, it's fine. It's Justice League number 1. Clearly they knew this was going to work out. But hey, we'll see what happens in Justice League number 2 next month. And believe it or not, that's it. That is all of the comics for this week. The single comic for this week. It is never going to be this easy again. Because starting next week with episode 1, we have 13 comics that we're going to cover. And that's going to be the average for the next 250 episodes. Oh dear God, it's just now hitting me. Anyway, next week is September 7th, 2011. Let's see what we got on the docket. Action Comics number 1, Animal Man number 1, Batgirl number 1, Batwing number 1, Detective Comics number 1, Green Arrow number 1, Hawk and Dove number 1, Justice League International number 1, Men of War number 1, OMAC number 1, Static Shock number 1, Stormwatch number 1, and Swamp Thing numero uno. I've already read a couple of those, but it's been a while, and I've actually read good comics since then, so who knows how they're going to stand up. Speaking of which, If you would like your opinion on any of these comics, whether the things I covered this week, next week, or some point in the future known to me, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. That is at DC Comics Podcast. Use the hashtag New52 because I kind of share that Twitter with a bunch of other people. Additionally, they have a Patreon. I have to pay into it, so you do too. Hit it up, MildFuzz TV, on patreon.com. As for the show, that's episode 0 in the bag. I have been planning this show for actual years now, and I'm so bittersweet that it's actually come to pass. I hope that you join me on this adventure, and oh god, it's actually 250 episodes. Oh geez, that's so many. Oh god. Anyway, I need a sign-off phrase. Always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.